It always starts the same way. She looks at you not as you are but as who she thinks you could become. You know that feeling, right? That spark in her eyes. At first it feels like hope, but look closer. Maybe it's not hope, maybe it's hunger. You think you're being seen, but you're not. You're being scanned, evaluated, sized up. Like a blank canvas waiting for her to start painting. But here's the twist, you're not the painting. You never were. Carl Jung warned us about this. And he didn't do it with soft, comforting words. He spoke with the brutal clarity of a man who spent decades staring into the abyss of the human psyche. He dedicated his life to understanding what lies beneath the surface of our awareness, the unconscious mind. And what he found there, especially when it came to women, wasn't just intriguing, it was terrifying. Jung discovered that women don't just fall for men, they fall for ideas of men, for fantasies, projections, and most of the time they're not even aware they're doing it. You think she picked you because of who you are. Nah, what she's really doing is choosing the character she wrote in her own private screenplay. You're just the actor stepping onto her stage, and when you stop reading from her script, when you stop fitting the role, she doesn't rewrite the story. She just replaces the actor. Jung had a name for this projection, the animus. It's the inner masculine image that lives inside every woman. When it's immature, unchecked, or unintegrated, it turns tyrannical. It becomes this silent dictator inside her mind. It's what pulls her toward reckless men and pushes away the steady, grounded ones. It's what fuels arguments that don't make sense, turns love into power plays, and drives her to moralize without ever looking inward. And for men, you get swept up in it. No one ever taught you to recognize the signs. You confuse being wanted with being understood. You think you're special when she says you're different, but in reality you're just the latest casting choice for the same tired role. And when the illusion breaks, when she suddenly pulls away, leaves, or turns cold, you're left standing there, dazed, asking yourself what you did wrong. But here's the truth, you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped being a convincing character in her dream. Jung said, the only way to escape this cycle is through individuation, the process of becoming whole in yourself. It's not glamorous. It's not something you can flex on social media. It's brutal. It means confronting every weak, wounded, and insecure part of yourself. It means taking full responsibility for your life. And that's something most men never do. You've been trained by society, by culture, by your upbringing to chase validation, to measure your worth by how much a woman wants you. And as long as you keep doing that, you'll keep stepping into the same role. The loyal, predictable, available guy until you're no longer exciting, no longer mysterious, and you get replaced by someone who is individuation. Means you stop blaming women for not seeing you and start asking, do I even see myself? Jung understood something that most men never grasp. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man when you choose yourself. When you stop looking to women to crown you and start taking ownership of your own worth. A man who's faced his unconscious, who's wrestled with his shadows, can't be seduced by projection. He's no longer interested in being a puppet. He becomes the author of his own reality. Jung said the greatest tragedy of the modern man isn't that he's rejected, it's that he's so willing to betray himself just to be. But it doesn't stop there, does it? Because once the mask slips, once she starts to realize you're not who she imagined, you start to feel the shift. The warmth cools, the attention fades. The love that once felt magnetic now feels conditional. She says things like, you've changed, or I don't know what happened to us. But deep down you know exactly what happened. You stopped playing the part. You stopped fitting the role. She needed you to play in her inner theater, and that's when the unraveling begins. Not because you're broken, not because you failed, but because her fantasy is collapsing and you're caught in the wreckage. And if you're like most men, you'll start scrambling to win her back, to prove yourself again. To become the man she wants you to be. You'll read the books, hit the gym, send the good morning texts, overcompensate, not because you love her, but because you're desperate to be chosen again. But let's stop right there, because what you're really trying to do in that moment isn't love, it's survival. It's a fear response. You're not showing up as a man, you're showing up as a performer. Desperate for applause. Carl Jung had a word for this, too. He called it false self-identity. It's the psychological mask we wear to keep being accepted. The polished version of ourselves designed for approval. And when that mask becomes your identity, you lose the ability to recognize who you are underneath it. Think about that. How many years have you spent playing a part? How many times have you bent your truth to fit into someone else's version of love? And how often have you felt empty afterward, like something inside you withered a little more? Here's the hard truth. If you keep showing up as a version of yourself built for approval, you will keep attracting people who only love that version, not you. And the worst part, you'll eventually resent them for it, even though it was you who never showed them who you really were. But you can't blame them, can you? Because you never gave them the chance to love the real you. You gave them a mask, a highlight reel, a curated illusion of strength, humor, confidence, whatever that thought would make you worthy. But worthiness doesn't come from performance. It comes from presence, from being deeply rooted in who you are, even if that version doesn't win applause. And this is where Jung's work hits like a hammer. He warned that men who never shed their false self end up spiritually sick. Not in the dramatic, explosive way, no, it's much quieter. It looks like numbing out in relationships, drifting from partner to partner, feeling disoriented in your own skin, wondering why nothing feels real anymore. That sickness comes from living outside your own soul for too long. But if you want to heal it, you have to stop reaching outward and start turning inward. You have to start walking the path of individuation. Now, let's be real. Individuation is not some glamorous feel-good journey. It's not a weekend retreat. It's not journaling once a week and lighting candles. It's brutal, it's relentless, and it's lonely. Why? Because individuation means meeting every part of yourself you've spent your whole life trying to avoid. The weak parts, the ashamed parts, the angry, wounded, insecure, jealous, broken parts, the shadow. And the thing about the shadow is it doesn't come quietly. It shows up with a mirror and asks you the hardest questions you've ever faced. Like, why do you keep choosing women who don't see you? Or, why do you keep abandoning yourself to feel loved? Or maybe, why do you believe you're only valuable when you're needed? And answering those questions, that's the beginning of real manhood. Because the path to becoming a man isn't about dominance or swagger or game. It's not about mastering seduction or becoming high value in some algorithmic sense. It's about integration, wholeness, owning every fragmented part of yourself without shame. That's the man who can no longer be seduced by projection because he's done the work. He's walked through his own psychological fire, and he's come out with a spine made of truth. You want to know why that kind of man is magnetic? Because he's rare. Because in a world full of performers, he is real. And real is terrifying. Real can't be manipulated. Real can't be shamed into silence. Real doesn't bend for approval. Women sense this instantly. It shakes them. It breaks the mold of what they've been taught to expect. Because most women, just like most men, have grown up in a world of projections. A world where relationships are built not on truth, but on mutual illusion. She projects her animus. You project your anima. She wants a hero. You want a goddess, and the two of you fall in love, not with each other, but with the stories you've both created in your heads. And then, piece by piece, it all unravels. Because no human being can live up to a fantasy forever. Jung saw this pattern repeat across countless lives. Over and over again, love turned into resentment, passion decayed into apathy, and he realized something most people never dare to consider. We don't fall out of love, we fall out of projection. And when the projection ends, so does the illusion of connection. This is why Jung didn't preach romanticism. He preached responsibility. Responsibility for your own psyche, your own triggers, your own unmet needs, your own projections. Because only when you own all of that, truly own it, do you stop seeking partners to complete you and start seeking partners who can walk beside you, not as saviors, not as healers, not as fantasy figures, but as fellow travelers on the path of selfish or OD. And yes, most people will never get there because it's easier to perform than it is to confront. It's easier to chase approval than it is to face rejection while standing in your truth. But you're here, you're listening. That means something inside you is already waking up. That means you're one of the few who might actually be ready to stop playing the game and start living from a place of raw, unshakable wholeness. And when that shift happens, everything changes. You stop trying to impress, you stop trying to fix, you stop trying to win. Instead, you stand still. You speak with calm authority. You walk with quiet conviction. And you become, as Jung would say, individuated, a whole man, not a fragmented boy chasing completion. And yes, this will threaten people. Women, especially if they're still dancing with their own unchecked animus, will feel it. And not all of them will like it. Because a man who no longer seeks validation can no longer be controlled. And that, my friend, is when the real journey begins. Let's talk about what happens after the awakening. After you stop chasing, stop performing, stop building your identity around being wanted. This is the part most men never reach, not because they can't, but because they're afraid of what it requires. Silence, solitude, stillness, the noise of the world, the likes, the attention, the sexual validation, the need to be someone. It all dies down. And what you're left with is you. Just you. No mask, no mirror, no performance. And in that space, something sacred begins to take shape. You start to hear your own voice again, not the one that echoes what society expects, not the one that says what women want to hear, not the one that tries to win. No, the deeper voice, the one buried under years of conditioning, the one that whispers, this is who you really are. And that voice, it's inconvenient, it doesn't align with your brand, it doesn't try to be liked, it speaks in truths that cost you approval, but buy you freedom. That's where sovereignty begins, not in dominance, not in detachment, but in the raw courage to stand alone with your integrity intact, even if it means being misunderstood, even if it means being unloved by the very people you once tried to impress. Because here's the paradox, the more you chase love, the more you lose yourself. But the more you embody yourself, the more you attract love that actually sees you. And that love, it's different. It's not frantic. It's not codependent. It doesn't need you to be perfect or polished or always strong. It just asks you to be real. But here's the cost most men won't pay. To receive that kind of love, you have to be willing to walk alone first. You have to become so deeply rooted in who you are that anyone who can't meet you there doesn't tempt you anymore. Even if she's beautiful, even if she's charming, even if she's charming, even if she mirrors everything you think you want, because now you know the difference between a spark and a spell, between chemistry and projection, between desire and resonance. This is where your discernment sharpens. You no longer fall for the flattery of being chosen. You no longer equate attention with affection. You no longer betray yourself to keep the connection alive, because now you can spot the game a mile away. You see the animus projections for what they are. Her longing for the divine masculine cast onto your shoulders, expecting you to be the man her father never was, her last partner never could be. Her fantasy always required. But you don't pick it up anymore because it's not yours. You're not here to save her. You're not here to fix her. You're not here to be the canvas for her unresolved wounds. You're here to walk beside her if and only if she's willing to do her work too. If she can meet you, not in fantasy, but in presence. Not as a god, but as a man, equal, whole, sovereign. That's rare. But when it happens, when two individuated souls meet without masks, without need, without illusion, something profoundly grounding unfolds. It's not fireworks. It's not butterflies. It's not some euphoric chemical high. It's calm. It's steady. It's real, and it doesn't require performance. It just requires truth. But truth is expensive. It'll cost you your false identity. It'll cost you your comfort. It'll cost you the approval of people who only ever loved your mask. But what you gain in return is worth more than any illusion you ever clung to. Your soul, your freedom, yourself. So, the question is no longer, how do I win her back? Or how do I become the kind of man women want? The real question is, who are you when you stop needing to be wanted? Answer that, and you won't just change your relationships, you'll change your life. And now comes the final piece. The hardest part. The part no one applauds you for. The part where there's no spotlight, no audience, no validation. Just you, alone, looking in the mirror, asking yourself a question that will define the rest of your life. Am I willing to live without pretending? Because once you've tasted the truth, even a drop, you can't go back. You can't return to the days of chasing affection like a beggar. You can't pretend to not notice the patterns anymore. You can't unsee the games people play, the roles they beg you to act out. And that's where the real freedom begins. Not in a dramatic transformation, not in a viral revelation, but in the quiet moment when you say to yourself, I'd rather be real than liked. That decision, it will cost you. Friends may fade, lovers may leave, family may not understand. But what you gain is something very few men ever find: yourself. And in that clarity, something else shifts. You stop looking at women as saviors. You stop resenting them when they don't save you. You stop performing in hopes of being chosen. Because now you realize something revolutionary. You are the one who does the choosing. You choose your path. You choose your integrity. You choose your truth, even when it's lonely, even when it's hard. And because of that, you become the kind of man a woman cannot control but can respect. Not because you're cold, not because you're distant, but because you no longer need to be approved of to know your worth. And ironically, that's when the right women begin to appear. Not women looking for a fantasy, not women looking for a father figure, not women looking to cast you in their private drama, but women who have walked their own path, who've confronted their own animus, who no longer need to possess, project, or perform. These women aren't loud. They won't flood you with validation. They won't try to seduce you into being something you're not. They're grounded, quietly powerful. And when they stand across from you, it's not a test, it's a mirror. You'll see it in her eyes. Not a hunger for control, but a recognition of self. Not a fantasy, but a presence. Not a role to fill, but a partner to walk beside. No neediness, no masks, no illusions, just a people whole in themselves, choosing each other. Not out of desperation, but out of alignment. And when that happens, the entire dynamic shifts. There's no chase, no manipulation, no pedestal, no power game, just truth. But that kind of love only reveals itself to men who've done the work. Men who've chosen the path Jung laid out. Not external success, not conquest, but individuation, the path of the few, the path of the brave, the path that demands everything and gives back something even more valuable. Freedom. Because freedom isn't found in being worshipped. Freedom isn't found in being wanted. Freedom isn't found in being chosen. It's found in standing unshaken, in who you are even when it's misunderstood, even when it's rejected, even when it's alone. And in that solitude, you become untouchable, not invincible, not emotionless, but deeply rooted. So rooted that nothing outside of you can define the truth within. That's what Jung was pointing to all along. Not a hatred of women, not a fear of intimacy, but the warning that until you claim your own soul, you will always be at the mercy of someone else's fantasy, and that is a tragedy. But the gift, the miracle, the light at the end of this brutally honest tunnel is this: you are not too broken, you are not too far gone, you are not doomed to repeat the pattern forever. You can choose today to stop, to breathe, to burn the script and write your own. That's the gift Jung left us, not a blueprint, but a mirror. The question is, will you look into it? Will you face what you see? And will you have the courage to become the man who no longer performs but simply is? If you made it this far, if something in your chest is burning right now, don't let it fade. Let it fuel you. Take a moment to like this video, subscribe, and share it with another man who's ready to stop living someone else's story. Not because you're perfect, but because you're finally ready to be real. And that, my friend, is the beginning of everything.